Hello, soul travelers. Welcome back to my channel where I share knowledge I have obtained along with my experiences to help you on your spiritual journey as I continue to learn and grow on mine. And today we're going to be talking about the ego. As I mentioned in one of my earlier videos, the ego is the personality that we've created through our circumstances, through our experiences, and through our influences to exist in this 3D realm. It is the person that we identify as and who we believe that we are. It is the person, like I said, that we identify with, whether that's a teacher, a wife, a mother, a father, all of those categories, all of those labels. And the important thing with the ego is to realize that we are more than those things. We are more than our opinions, all of that. Because it's important to remember that we are a part of a collective conscious. We are more than those identities, and we are not separate. We are all collective conscious, okay? And we're all a part of it. And one of the important characteristics of the ego is that it leads us to believe that we are separate. Okay? Don't get me wrong. We do need the ego to exist here. However, as spiritual beings, we must learn how to become aware of the ego, so that we can kind of strip it away, so that we know the difference and we're able to reach our higher selves. Okay, and we must learn how to balance the two and know when the ego is necessary, when it's not, and also to become aware of what traits of the ego are useful to us and serves us and which ones do not. Okay. So this is how we build a healthy ego and stay balanced. And everything in the universe is all about balance, as you know. So when I say ego, I'm not necessarily referring to arrogance, although that can definitely be a part of the ego. It's also talking about, as I said earlier, the way that we identify ourselves, our opinions. Some of us might say, oh, well, I'm a Capricorn or I'm a Leo, so that's why I'm this way and that. That is also part of the ego, as the sun sign represents the ego and the identity. And in spirituality, the goal actually is to transcend all 12 of the limitations of the signs, and become a part of the greater whole. Okay? But we're also talking about the way we attempt to control our outside world to make us happy. I'm talking about our need to react to certain situations, our need to explain ourselves. I'm talking about those insecurities that cause us to project onto other people, or that make us feel superior, make us feel inferior. The thing that causes us to look outside ourselves for happiness or fulfillment, or to identify ourselves and other people and other things. And like I said, it's times when we need it, like when we go to work or we interact with other people in a public environment, but we have to bring ourselves down to earth to speak and engage in these necessary interactions, but we must also make sure that we're aware of our higher selves and that we can hear that voice and that we're listening and know when we're getting overly involved in the 3D world. Our ego is also responsible for basing our success on how much money we make and things like that. And we can overindulge when we're indulging too much in food, in alcohol, keeping ourselves too busy or keeping ourselves distracted, to the point that we are avoiding our inner work, doing our inner work on ourselves, or we are drowning out the voice of spirit, or simply just not being aware of our higher self because we are living so much through the ego, thinking that the way we dress is so important, or what others think of us is so important. And when we're too focused in these types of things, we are not reaching our higher selves. Okay, so we also must balance ourselves from living too far in the clouds. We have to be in the ego so that we don't neglect our responsibilities, so that we can be focused on those physical, practical things, so we don't fail to connect with the people around us. And as usual, I'm going to tell y'all like a couple of stories to kind of help you better understand examples of the ego for what it is. Then I'm going to talk about some ways we can kind of work on breaking it down so we can reach our higher selves and have a more healthy ego. Because like I said, the ego has its place, but we want to make sure that it's a healthy ego. And the ego is also responsible for telling ourselves, you know, that we can't do this or we can't do that, or, you know, I don't do that. I'm in this box or that box, you know, that kind of thing. The ego really likes labels. Okay, so a few days ago, I went to a store where they were selling food. I started to tell the lady what I wanted to eat, and she asked me a question, and I kept asking her to repeat the question because I couldn't understand what she was saying. She was Hispanic, and I guess her English wasn't the greatest. Now, this is the thing. I happen to be pretty decent at speaking Spanish. But for whatever reason, when it comes to ordering food and when it comes to engaging in Spanish conversations with women, I tend to get insecure about my Spanish. And I pretty much got frustrated with the situation, and I yelled at my husband, "Hey, just come order this food for me." You know, like I am frustrated, I yell at him, and then I see it all over the lady's face immediately that she thinks that I'm angry at her, that she doesn't speak English well, when in fact I'm not. I've never had that issue. And the thing is, I could have simply used my Spanish words to order my food, and then she would not have responded to me in English, and then I would not have gotten frustrated. But what happened, y'all? I allowed my insecurity to get me angry. Okay, so that is an example of me reacting in my ego. Okay, because I was afraid to be judged or laughed at or whatnot. And then I got frustrated when the situation wasn't going the way I wanted it to go, all based on my insecurity about using my Spanish when it was appropriate to use it. So I apologized to her in Spanish, and I just kind of reflected on this whole situation on the way home. You see, like one of the big ways and the first steps to stripping away the ego is to first identify the ego, to become aware of it, okay? So one way we can do that is by examining our circumstances, examine our life, and really look in the mirror and really ask ourselves, what am I doing? How am I contributing to this situation? Even in situations when we feel we are the victim, when we are identifying as the victim, we are also in the ego, because we are not looking deeper and asking ourselves, what did I do to end up in this situation? And what could I do to change this situation, other than blame other people for hurting us or, you know, causing us irritation or whatnot. And the next question you want to ask after finding out the what is you want to ask, why am I acting in this way? What is going on deep within me to cause this reflection? And then you want to go even deeper than that, and you want to find out what contributed to you acting this way once you know the why, and you want to keep taking it deeper. Another example of acting in the ego is trying to control our external environment to make us happy, okay, or blaming others for our unhappiness, as I was just speaking about. So one night I was at my father's house, and I knocked over a glass of wine, and as soon as the glass hit the ground and it broke, I knew that I had alerted him, and my first instinct was to like be afraid of his wrath. Okay, go back in a little girl mode. Now my father has never been a violent person, but you know, when he gets angry, it's pretty scary anyways. And especially about things like this. So I begin to clean up. He comes in, and I mean, he is going off, okay, because my father is a neat freak and he is a perfectionist, and I remain calm. And I said, Daddy, it was a mistake. You can't always control everything. If your happiness depends on your external world to be happy, you'll never be happy, you know. And stepping out of the ego is not always being quiet, okay? Because what I said to my father was out of pure love. Now, if I had cowered and become that little girl, that's kind of me stepping into that ego and identifying as that little girl, putting ourselves in a role. I'm the daughter, he's the father. That's another example of the ego is defining roles. Okay, because we are all so much more than the defining roles: wife, husband, father, daughter, and we can all learn something from each other, but we can't do that when we are putting ourselves in these boxes. Okay. So like I said to my father, because I really hate seeing him so unhappy and trying to just like struggle with like controlling his outside environment. And a lot of us do struggle with that, trying to control our world from the outside in rather than from the inside out, So that's another example of acting in the ego. A very common issue that we all deal with. Probably one of the best examples of acting in the ego is when we feel the need to react to people who are triggering us, especially people who are triggering us on purpose. Now, this is not to say, excuse me, that we shouldn't stand up for ourselves, because that is definitely a time when the ego is needed. However, when we are in touch with our higher selves and we know who we are and we are not living in the ego, we won't even be triggered what they're saying, because it doesn't bother us. Okay. So let's talk about some ways we can kind of begin breaking down the ego. As I mentioned earlier, those first steps are going to be assessing ourselves, identifying our actions, our reactions, identifying the ego, and being able to separate it from our true selves, okay? And we want to start to look at the why and the how, and we want to examine what trauma is behind it, what events are behind it. We want to explore this on a deeper level, back to our childhood, work on forgiving the people who hurt us, or even forgive ourselves for putting ourselves in situations, okay? And also acknowledge and take responsibility where we contributed to our own pain, okay? And this sort of exercise can be referred to as shadow work, or a part of shadow work. And you can journal this. You can do it in your mind. You can do a video diary. You can do it through meditation, however you wish to. Another good tool to use is our root chakra work, okay? Because our root chakra is our base chakra. It is the first chakra that is activated in childhood. It is about survival. It's about our security. It's about making us feel safe. So a lot of our trauma and a lot of our deep-rooted subconscious belief systems, our limiting belief systems, are in that first chakra, okay? So we need to heal the root chakra and clear it if it is blocked. And you can do this by starting out with a guided root chakra meditation. A lot of our root chakras are blocked, as I just said, and we need to kind of clear it of those energies and kind of get down to the root of what is blocking it. That can contribute to us having unhealthy egos, okay? And I will be leaving a link to a guided root chakra meditation that I used for myself, so that you can use that. And we can also, and you can do this in combination with the root chakra, or you can do it separately. However, we want to talk to our inner child. We want to write to them to tell them they're safe. Tell them that it's not their fault, or whatever it is you feel that your inner child needs to hear. Why? Because, like I said, our ego is formed from our influences, from our upbringing, from our experiences. So this ego, we're not even aware that it's separate from our higher selves, or we're not aware that it is not truly our true selves, okay? We don't even realize that it is an identity that we have created. So doing the inner child work is also a form of shadow work. You might think it sounds silly at first, but you will be surprised at the things that come up when you engage in this. So yes, stripping away the ego does involve a lot of shadow work, and that's basically when we identify any of our darker natures and kind of learn how to heal those darker natures, or heal the things that caused our darker natures to be birthed in the first place. Now, don't get me wrong, the shadow self or the darker self is very necessary, because we are dual beings. We're beings of duality, and everything exists in duality in the universe, dark and light. Okay, so we need it, but we want to have a healthy shadow self and learn how to live with it, alongside it, work with it, instead of it working against us. Okay, so when we start walking the spiritual path, we have to look out for our ego getting in our way, because a lot of people become spiritual and they'll start looking down and they'll start judging people for not being where they are. Okay, because that's also the ego. And then sometimes we even start to live in the identity of being spiritual, or being a witch, or being this or that, a shaman or whatever, and that is fine, to identify yourself, because as I said, the ego, we can't get rid of it. It is an integral part of our existence, but let's just not get caught so much up in the identifying part or judging other people part, that we are not doing our own inner work. Okay, so I hope you understand a little bit better what the ego is and how to break it down and how to balance it. And it's important to strip away the ego so that we can reach our higher selves. Okay, so just to recap, we're more than what we identify as: mother, wife, teacher, lover, husband, brother, daughter, whatever. We're more than that. The ego tends to keep us from realizing that we are part of the collective conscious. Okay, it makes us think that we are separate when we are not. So those are two things that we need to realize in order to reach our higher selves. And we also need to become aware of our ego and able to kind of observe it from an outside point of view, and see when we are the problem. Okay, and see when we are the mitigating factor in our own issues. Okay, so thanks for watching. I will leave that link to the root chakra meditation so that you can use it. You can email me or comment questions or anything else you wish to comment. I hope this video was helpful for you, and I will see you at the next stop. Bye, soul travelers.